Phil Harris and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible fortnightly podcast, Dream Big, Move Fast.
A progressive, contemporary conversation on what it takes to be a dynamic thinker, leader, and role model.
Backed with over 2 decades of friendship, trials and tribulations, they teach from real-world experience and what it takes to dream big, move fast. Personal relationships are the fertile soil for which all advancement, all success, all achievement in real life grows. Ben Stein. Phil, what are your thoughts about this as a quote to kick off today's session?
Yeah, how true it is, right? Life literally is about our relationships with others. That's where fulfillment is. So yeah, it's a good reflection.
It's why people come and join your brand. It's why people leave your brand. It's why ultimately, people will do a deal with you or not do a deal with you. And if you can't respond back to someone, or you can't do things in a timely manner, or have a relationship that's going to be super strong, mate, the day that you need that relationship, it's not going to be there.
It is, and it's
about investment, right?
It is very humbling, Josh, in terms of like the honest reality is the current state and culture of your business is a reflection of you. Right, and it's hard. So and you got to, and that's a daily battle. Like sometimes they're going, well, I got to say, look, we've had people leave our organisation, and it hurts. And you go, hang on. At the end of the day, they're not leaving Harris. They're not leaving the building. They're not leaving the office fit out. They're leaving me as the leader, and I got to take responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about digital domination. And I kind of love this as a topic because there's an old school saying that marketing is the battle of perceptions. And if you can win in marketing, you win the battle of perception. What are your thoughts about that as a broad statement that marketing is the battle of perceptions?
I think it absolutely is the battle of perceptions. I think it's a very trending topic for where the industry is at right now.
Sure. So let's think about it, right? So a lot of people would have a relationship with Woolworths, and I didn't. I was in our local area where I grew up. Coles was the supermarket to go to because it was bigger and it was brighter. And like we just had developed a brand affiliation with Coles. It wasn't through anything else, but it was just closer to home and better parking, and Mum liked going there. Now the interesting thing, I never really had a brand association with them at all, with Woolworths. And then you might have seen that there was a startup that was done in Sydney, and it was a place called Milk Run. And Milk Run had spent $20 million on building this digital brand. Yes. And what the whole idea was that you would order and it would be delivered to your house in 8 or 9 minutes. And it was like insane, this concept that you could do that. You could order some milk and have it delivered. And I kind of liked it because like I would be at the airport getting off a plane and go, I don't have any milk for porridge tomorrow morning, so I'll just get it delivered rather than having to stop off in the car in the wet rain. And so I could just, pick it up at my front door. And I developed this unbelievable brand affiliation with Milk Run. Milk Run goes broke, and literally a couple of weeks later, Woolworths buys it, but they don't rebrand it. So what they do is they keep it as Milk Run, and they have this unbelievable, arcade game. And it's like end of game, would you like to play again? End of game, would you like to play again? And if you go yes, and it then says player 1, Milk Run, and then player 2, Woolies. And then it goes on with this battle. And so they relaunch their entire digital ordering platform as Milk Run. And so now get this. So I would use Milk Run for last minute purchases all the time. But I don't even think about Coles anymore. And Coles did a tie-up with Uber, but I don't relate Coles and Uber to delivery.
Yeah, right.
I'm 100% like Milk Run is a cool, edgy brand. It's city-fied. It's like literally it's the 20 and 30-year-olds are into it. Like it's not old and stagey of your mum and my mum rolling down to Woolies and having a bit of a chat in the aisle. And so the interesting thing about this is that literally it's about digital domination. So I always think about it. If you want to dominate in digital, the first foundational concept is that what's the problem that you're actually trying to solve? So do you want to be building audience? Are you in a position that ultimately you want to be making it look like you're doing a lot? And what's the battle of perception? So, Harris, for example, you guys might do a couple thousand transactions a year, but I bet you that there's like 100 or 200 or 300 of them that are beautiful, luxe, architecturally significant, sunshine. And the rest is just Adelaide property. No offense, but there are some properties that are really going to attract eyeballs. So if the brand wants to be positioned to do high end, the extra effort that you go to on the video content, the photography content, the placement of that, which we used to do in newspapers and magazines, now needs to be done in the digital form. So, and we're now, and this is the interesting stuff, the latest research on this is the average Australian is spending 6 to 8 hours a day on a mobile device, And now Australians are struggling to walk from one room to the next room in their house without watching a video whilst they do it. And the average person, whilst watching Netflix or a movie, will also watch up to 20 other movies whilst they're watching the core movie because they're scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, and all of the above. And if you have a look at the video platforms, LinkedIn, right, you would not have thought this, massive video platform. YouTube, Shorts, massive video platform. You then go and have a look at Instagram, TikTok, like it's all gone video. And get this, if you go to a Google search now and you type in Josh Phegan as an example, and it will come in underneath it and it will say web, images, video, short video. And so short video of 8 to 12 seconds is killing it because the attention span of the consumer has reduced to just flick and tick. And so this is that whole conversation about like getting really clear that like if you start to think about that, what does your brain think of straight away? You need more short form content.
Yeah, definitely. And
like 8 to 12 seconds at a time.
A whole lot more digital content to be in that space. It's an interesting one though, Josh, like to get your take on. It definitely feels like the industry, I see a lot of people investing heavily time, effort, money, resources in the perception of being good, and it's stolen away resources, time, energy, effort from the reality of becoming good.
So
is that a fair assessment?
Don't disagree.
Because I see some people with some incredible social media profiles.
Yeah.
But when I actually do the back end search of what the actual volume of transaction is, it's a very, very moderate operator.
So if you think about it, this is the perception.
So where's that fine line?
Okay, so marketing's about David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
And so when you think about David versus Goliath, there are some brands that very much position themselves as David and other people are Goliath. And so like literally there are brands that say, hey, we monitor the rest of the industry so that you don't have to.
Yes.
We monitor the whole market so that you don't have to. So they're doing jobs for the customer, but we're not like other real estate agents. And it's fine to call yourself different. There was actually a platform called Different. It wasn't that successful, but the basic foundational conversation is that literally you have to be different in the eyes of the consumer. So when you think about it from a digital point of view, what you're trying to now say, okay, great, can you actually get unbelievable levels of saturation? Now, this is interesting. I've got brands that I could show you. They've got a lot of smoke for not much fire.
Yes.
And at Harris, respectfully, you got a lot of fire.
Not much smoke.
But not much smoke. Now, that might be because of the way you fan the fire or whatever the story is. But the interesting conversation is, how do I help you to continue to build that brand domination for what you're capable of doing and still be loved? Right?
Yeah, and that was our conversation at dinner last night, wasn't it? Saying that that's probably a little bit of a lazy asset or an Achilles heel with Harris, that we haven't put enough energy, effort into getting the digital right. So today it's a fascinating conversation for me.
So let's talk about foundations. Can you own a soundbite? So what some brands have done really, really well is that they've created an image, a sound, a piece of language that if said, you instantly know that particular brand. So a really good example of this, Gavin Rubenstein has done an amazing job at this at TRG with Welcome Home. So in each of his videos, in any of the TRG people, and this is an observation, I'm not sure it's a strategy, I'll ask Gavin next time I see him, but literally what I can tell you is that literally if you're looking for a beautiful quintessential home in Bellevue Hill, Welcome Home.
Yeah.
And you know instantly that it's that brand. Now, there are some phenomenal real estate agents that have got a persona and literally that they say their name a certain way, they use a certain tone of voice, they use a certain type of thing. And when you see them in person, they're not actually like that, but they built this brand that's highly memorable for all of those reasons. Now, that's kind of interesting. So, first of all, does your brand have a soundbite that everyone in your brand is taught to say in a particular way in the opening seconds that literally allows instant brand recognition for what it is that you actually do? Second conversation of that, do you have a content plan? So what is the thing that literally Harris spends more money on than anyone else? And it's the production of content for property. Think about the millions of photos and videos and copywriting that you actually get done. But how do we actually now take that and make it more scalable? So we're just going to go to your videographer and say, hey, look, we've got a theory. We think that literally every 1 minute video for a property is now also going to come with 4 8 to 12 second reels. And we're going to have a layout over the top of that, which is launching soon, open this weekend, auction this Saturday, now sold. And get this, we're not going to post the now sold at 12:01 on Saturday after the auction. We're going to post the now sold at 4 p.m. on Sunday for ultimate scroll time. And so understanding about placement of media, because we got like, we're all like, we just want to look successful. Yeah, but placement of media, tone it down is the skill set to maximize audience around that. And so now when you think about content types, we've got property content. That's pretty easy. Now, the stylization of property content isn't there. So when we do an agent walkthrough. And so like literally if I say, okay, great, alrighty, legends, there's a particular person in Sydney, that's how he does the opening of his dialogue. And he's going to walk you through the house. It's a complete model from Ryan Seahant, from his conversation in New York. So that's the agent walkthrough. There's also no agent in the property video at all. That's also a style. There's also having an external paid presenter who presents on behalf of your brand. There's also the model where you've actually got proper people in that, where you've got the little kids running out to the back and you've got the parents there in the kitchen and you've got people in artistry as a part of that conversation. So that's on property style. Then there's agents. So how do we do the introduction of an agent when they come to work at your particular brand? What do agents have a choice of in content? Do they do a market wrap? Do they do a market update? Do they do a Saturday afternoon recap? Are they in a position that they don't do anything? And then there's also agency brand. Now, I think that you and I have probably fallen in love with brands like Nike and Apple that are very specific about campaigns. So Kipchoge, as we're recording today, is in Australia right now, and he's about to run the Sydney Marathon on Sunday. And I saw a beautiful piece of film of him running around Sydney yesterday. I was like, oh man, I wish I had done that, because he's doing my run faster, but he's doing my run today. Yeah, and so like you build into this whole conversation around that they buy into athletes and around the conversations around it. And if you think about it, they do this incredible brand marketing pieces that are not shouty, but they're in a position that they can lay it out. So once you've got all of this content, then what actually happens? So I was telling you about a client, for example, that I will be on stage and I'll speak between 8 o'clock and 3 o'clock in their brand. And at 8 a.m., the videographers come in. As I'm leaving at 2:30, the video about the training day is already on their social. And then over the course of the next 72 hours, it's actually played across different accounts that they have, different directors, different key salespeople, different accounts of their offices as a part of that. So there's obviously an ad mention and sharing strategy in collaboration of how they're actually bringing that together so we can get it across their entire audience. And so what you want to think about is that, like, you and me might be in a sales team with Jen, and Jen might be our head of ops, and you're a salesperson, I'm a salesperson, like back in the day. But I've got a different audience to you, and Jen's got a different audience to us both. But like, we're posting content at different times or adding mention or sharing it in different ways as a part of that conversation. So there's a real strategy on that. And then there's a conversation around like the stylization of what do we want? Do we want to be in front of camera or not? Like, we can't have 500 people doing a podcast inside of Harris, but we can have like a leader of residential sales high end, or a leader of residential sales normal, or a leader of residential sales for investment properties. And we could definitely have a property management, conversation. We could definitely, go and do off plan if that was an area of service line. And so then starting to think, okay, great, once we've got the content, then how do we display it in terms of our platforms? So what platforms do we want to play on? Twitter or X is not huge, I would say, in residential property in Australia. But Instagram and TikTok is. So we need to make sure that how we're going to get to that stylization. And is Harris the sort of brand that you're going to run and jump into a pool with your suit on? Or is Harris the sort of brand, well, no, we don't do that for likes and views. What we actually do though is present beautiful, quintessential, architecturally stylistic, great living examples. And do we have editorial type content like The Local Project, which is in focus? And I've got a fantastic young guy up in Brisbane who does, like, not the tale of the sale, but sales breakdowns. Where he actually, and this is actually, if you've seen any of The Economist, and I think it's Chris Coe, I think I've got his name right. And what he does a really good job of is breakdowns of how businesses failed or made it. Like, so the Kodak breakdown. So give me the breakdown on how that particular builder bought that particular property, did the subdivision, built 2 subunits on it, and then went on to go and sell it. So it's more editorial and it's more content driven. Or is it partnerships and collaborations where I'm going to a stylist, I'm going to a builder, I'm going to, an architect who's going to tell me about, how they do X, Y, Z, to go to make that happen. And so when you're starting to think about that, it's then like getting really, really clear about the formalization of what it is that you do in business. How's that for a quick uplift for areas to consider? And to now go and start to think about, well, we need to actually build a strategy for each of those.
Yeah, it's in line with that conversation that we had. I think that if you're serious about getting this right, you really need to go and take a day aside and actually document a strategy, don't you, with what those pillars are around agent, around office, around culture, around property. There's actually needs to be a documented strategy, and there's actually a whole rollout learning plan that needs to be required by the whole company to actually engage with what that broader strategy is.
So if I go out to your sales team and I surveyed everyone, would you like to be in the video, yes or no? And if they say, no, not my thing, that's okay, because we've got a plan for that. If you do want to be in video, then you actually have to be accredited and trained on how you're going to present to camera. And is that going to be professional, or is that going to be raw content, and starting to move inside of this space? And you know what? It's not actually hard. You just need to be really consistent about behavior, and you got to be prepared to try a few things, and you need to meet on it and have a conversation around it. Principle, quality scales faster than quantity. Now, thinking about digital assets here, we see a lot of people that produce heaps of stuff, but no one watches
stuff,
it. Yeah. Versus like the quality of what it is that you do. Is this an important foundational piece? Because you see those beautiful videos that are like kind of like Drive to Survive type interviews that are black and white, that have got this whole conversation. Like we all saw the Johnny Ive release, recently with, Sam Altman and ChatGPT and that whole conversation. It was beautiful films. I've watched that like several times and fallen in love with what they've done in terms of the brand. Is that more important than like, here's my Saturday wrap or my daily update, in the back of a Tesla, live streamed?
Well, I think we have transitioned now from, largely kind of social media has been it still has been relatively an early thing for adapting that to residential property. And I think definitely the initial strategy was just roll out at all cost, where almost some of that kind of like Gary Vee coaching approach, which was don't worry about the content, just like, are you posting 27 times a day? Like that was kind of that was the methodology behind it.
Yeah, volume.
But now the trend is definitely shifted to like a super high quality, specifically targeted approach as opposed to mass volume.
Yeah, and I think that like literally you get known for what you produce and get really clear about what your brand stands for so you don't get caught out. And so, for example, we're not an activist brand. You won't see us in the streets. It's not our thing, right? Patagonia definitely is.
Yep.
Now, it's not that we're not advocates. We're just not going to do it in the street. We'll do it privately in the boardrooms, if that makes sense,
sure,
about our presentation. So you've got to know where your brand sits and really make some proper decisions around what you want to do. Feeling good and ready for more? Thanks for joining us
On Dream Big,
Move Fast.